Feminism in Islam. Does Islam believe in feminism and equality between the genders? This is a very generic question, because to answer it, you have to define what you mean by feminism, if it is simply demanding the rights that Islam has allocated to women. Such as in some cultures they deprive women of inheritance, in some cultures they get a woman married against her will, therefore, it is acceptable if you and I demand these rights. In Islam we have two types of people who advocate for equal rights, one is a liberal feminist, and the other is an Islamic feminist. They accept what Quran and Hadith say. Liberalism feminist and what they demand, their demand is illogical. They make demands which is completely illogical. And not related to Islam. If anyone calling for such things may risk getting out of the fold of Islam. What does Islam teach about equality? When Islam was first introduced, there was high ignorance. It was called the days of Jahala in Arabic, which means ignorance, because no respect was given to women. When daughters were born, they were buried alive, because they thought daughters bring shame to families, sons were the ones that were given the honor. It was a very hard time for women to survive in that society. Then Islam was revealed, and this was in Mecca, which is now Saudi Arabia, and all of a sudden they completely changed the idea of what women are supposed to be. Let's start with a few examples. Women, as I said, were buried alive. They had no say in anything whatsoever, maybe political, maybe employment, education, but all of a sudden Islam allowed women to vote, to partake in political activities, and be important parts of society. This was in 600 CE. When did the USA do that? They did this in the 1920s, right? So they were about 13 centuries late. Now if I were to go to another example, Europe, ownership of property. In Europe, as some of you might know, if you were to own a property, you had to transfer it to your husband once you got married. And then a bill was passed in the 1870s, to let women keep ownership of that property. Islam doesn't have anything of that sort. You can keep as much investments or property that a woman might own. And she has no responsibility to transfer it to her husband when she gets married. Now again, that was in 600 CE, and Europe did this in the 1870s, so Europe is about 12 centuries late. Let's go to income. Now income is also related to your property and your investment, because there were equal employment and education opportunities for women now. Women were earning money, and now what Islam says about women: if a woman is to earn, she does not have the duty to invest a single cent on her local household. She can do whatever she wants with it. But her husband, or her parents, or her children, do not have the right to tell her, since you're earning, you should be the breadwinner of the family. The man is supposed to be responsible. Previously, women were oppressed, and so Islam comes along and gives some certain rights to women's, and value it out with men. I'd like to come to motherhood. Once a woman gives birth to a child, or adopts a kid, automatically her status in Islam is elevated to extreme degrees. One of the examples is that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the one who brought Islam to society, and a man approached him and asked 3 times to him, "Who in society deserves my respect and kindness?" The Prophet replied, "Your mother," and then the man asked for the 4th time, "Who next?" Then the Prophet replied, "Your father." Now this doesn't mean that you don't respect your father, but it means that your mother deserves 3 times more respect than your father. It's because she had to bear with you for 9 months, and the physical pain that she had to go through, the sacrifices that she had to make. Also the Prophet says, once you become a mother, paradise lies under your feet. Islamic law, women's education. Let's discuss the educational rights of women in Islam, the first guidance revealed by Allah to the whole humankind in the Quran. It was not to offer salah, it was not to give charity, it was not to fast, but it was to read. The first 5 verses revealed of the Quran, chapter number 96, verse number 1 to 5, and it says, "Read, recite, proclaim, in the name of the Lord who created the men from clay. Read in the name of the Lord, who's most bountiful, who taught men the use of the pen, who taught men which he did not know." The first guidance is given by Allah in the Quran. It was to read, and it is for both males and females. The Prophet told the parents to educate their children, especially the daughters. The husband must give education to their wife, especially religious education, and if they don't, she has the right to go to the court and demand for it. There is a chapter in Bukhari. The woman approaches the Prophet and tells him that you're always surrounded by men, and why you don't give time to women's for education. The Prophet agreed and dedicates time to educating only the woman. And if you read the history of Islam, 1,400 years ago, in the days of ignorance, at that time we have examples of many women who are scholars. The best example I can think of is Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the wife of the Prophet. One of her students says that I have not come across a scholar greater than Aisha in the teaching of the Quran and obligated duties in literature and poetry. And when we read the bio of Aisha, we find out that she was an expert in mathematics, and after the demise of the Prophet, many of the Prophet's companions came to her, especially when dealing with inheritance, because she was an expert in mathematics. And only on her authority alone, there are no less than 1,210 hadith reported from her. We have tons of examples of Muslim women scholars, but we just mention one example, for understanding that Islam supports women in education. Whenever subject she is interested in, it is an order to Muslim men from the Prophet, to support their women, and if you see somewhere in a Muslim country, or some Muslims did not support their women in education, they are going against Islam, and Islamic law, you can't blame Islam for that. I hope this video guides you to the right path, and finds you a bit light in the dark. If have any questions, please let me know, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.